Under the same roof, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World News at Noon. As you guys know, I was in court yesterday with Sean Diddy Combs, and I'm here to tell you there's a good possibility that he might be coming home based on what I heard, although it's kind of tricky. At the end of the day, keep in mind that Judge Submaranian, who sentenced Diddy Combs, only been a federal judge for 2 years. And at the end of the day, the decisions that the three judges have to make with their panel has to factor in also the record in regards to that judge. So it might be difficult in that regard. But as from what I heard in court, great arguments were made in regards to the acquitted acts for Sean Diddy Combs to be, for those to be factored into his sentencing was definitely not a good judgment. So we'll see how this turns out, but I would not be surprised. In fact, the judge in this particular case, the judge that presided over the matter, it seems that he placed the best argument out as to why it would not be wise to use those acquitted acts against Sean Diddy Combs. But the other judge, the other male judge, he made a pretty good argument just saying, and also the female judge too, they implied that there was more against Sean Diddy Combs that would establish a reason for him to receive the time that he received. So we'll have to see how this all materializes. In fact, the other male judge, I don't know his name, but he basically stated how the women that dealt with Sean Diddy Combs, they had to deal with psychological issues. In fact, one of them became hooked on narcotics, namely the pills. And so he really emphasized how these factors should have a role in the sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs. But we'll have to see how this works out. I'm actually going to play the hearing for those who want to watch it perhaps tonight as a watch party. But I wanted you guys to understand that's the reason why he might be able to come home, because the presiding thought is that if he was acquitted of certain things, it's not right for the judge to then try to apply those charges against his time, his sentencing. And so that's what we could have seen in this particular case. In fact, one of the points that came out by the female judge is that in the judge's closing arguments, basically he said that Sean Diddy Combs had plied these females with drugs. Okay. He plied them. He had also forced it on them. And so that was more towards some of the charges of coercion and force that Sean Diddy Combs had been acquitted for. So why are you using that type of terms in regards to his final sentencing? So we're going to get into that at a deeper level. But right now we're going to move on. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. We're going to get into a lot when it comes to Iran, the president, and also we're going to start off today with the president's wife. I'm not sure if you guys know, but she gave a speech in regards to the Epstein files. Now, guys, keep in mind that I'm under the weather, but I still chose to come on to do this show, so bear with me, and I thank you guys kindly. Let's get to it in regards to Melania Trump.
Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his.
She seems deeply troubled by all of this Epstein saga. Good morning to you, L Dog. Love you too, Anderson. Thank you.
Accomplice Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1990.
So I just want to take a second. A lot of people, by way of the internet, were saying that Melania Trump had met the president of the United States through Epstein, and perhaps he was instrumental in Melania's life, and she's coming out to basically set the record straight and says, no way, this has nothing to do with me. All right, so this is what she's saying.
This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings.
A lot of people are actually saying that she has disgraced the White House because this is the first time that the First Lady has come forward to say she has not committed any crimes or has been associated with such a terrible person. But I think it's quite brave in her regard to come forward and face all of the naysayers to set the record straight when it comes to her name. But that's just my opinion.
Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now.
Yes, there are some nude photos of her allegedly floating around from perhaps being in Russia, and also they have photos floating with her being with Epstein, but she's coming forward on her own. The president is nowhere in the frame. She's doing this on her own to say, no, this is fake news, and I have not done any of these things.
Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false. I'm not a witness or a named witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant, was never on Epstein's plane, and never visited his private island. I have never been legally accused or convinced of a crime.
Guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Also hit the hearts. Thank you very much. Help us get into the algorithm. Thank you.
In connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior. The false smears about me from mean-spirited and politically motivated individuals and entities looking to cause damage to my good name, to gain financially and climb politically, must stop. My attorneys and I have fought these unfounded and baseless lies with success and will continue to maintain my sound reputation without hesitation. To date, several individuals and companies have been legally obligated to publicly apologize and retract their lies about me, such as Daily Beast, James Carville, and HarperCollins, UK. Now is the time.
So today in this particular show, we're going to talk about how the president is actually going against a lot of individuals that used to support him. And he's actually calling them out as individuals trying to drag him down. But simultaneously, it appears his wife is doing the same thing. They're on a campaign to clear their names, and they're really bringing lawsuits against the naysayers.
For Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress.
So let's take a moment. Put a 1 in the chat if you believe her. Put a 2 if you do not. 1 if you believe her, 2 if you don't.
To provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every
My heavens, most people do not believe her at all. This is quite damning, I must say.
woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered in.
Okay, guys, Overwatch, shout out to you. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Guys, please subscribe. Thank you so much. Overwatch says this is damage control. Okay, thank you very much.
To the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
Wow. So she didn't answer any questions, but I still felt like she did a good job. She came forward to clear her name, and I think that's tremendous to be able to do that. And she did not even bother to have the president to walk up there with her. She did it on her own. So we'll see how this develops. But you know how what happens, people are going to try to put her to the test and see if she's actually lying. So I imagine the next few days is going to be pretty tough. All right, J-Cat is in the building. We got Lisa. Thank you guys so much. Now, let's switch up a little bit. We have a lot to cover today. We'll probably be here a couple of hours. But I want to show you guys what the Pope has to say in regards to the President of the United States. Pope Leo is really turning up on the President of the United States. What do you guys think about that?
Today, as we all know, there has also been this threat against the entire people of Iran, and this is truly unacceptable. There are certainly issues of international law here, but even more so a moral issue for the good of the whole entire population. And I would like to invite everyone to truly think in their hearts about the many innocent people, so many children, so many.
In your lifetime, how many times has the Pope come out to talk about the President of the United States, right? Is this a new trend? Why do you think this is happening?
Elderly, completely innocent, who would also become victims of this escalation of a war that began from the very first days, as we were saying.
asking all people of goodwill to search always for peace and not violence, to reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war, which is continuing to escalate and which is not resolving anything. In fact, we have a worldwide economic crisis, energy crisis, situation in the Middle East of great instability, which is only provoking more hatred throughout the world. So come back to the table. Let's talk. Let's look for solutions in a peaceful way. And let's remember, especially the innocent, children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become.
So recently in the White House, we've heard the President of the United States, we've heard J.D. Vance, we've also heard Pete Hegseth. They all talk about Jesus. They mention Jesus. In fact, the President of the United States says, hey, we're doing this for Jesus Christ, right? Those were his words. At the same time, we have the Pope coming out to condemn the president and also his administration, because essentially they're saying that if you promote war, then your prayers are not heard by God.
We'll become victims of this continued warfare. To remind all that attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of. And we all want to work for peace. People want peace. I would invite the citizens of all the countries involved to contact the authorities, political leaders, congressmen, to ask them, tell them to work for peace and to reject war always. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the Pope says we need to reject war. He's sending a strong message to the President of the United States. But now we're going to take a look and see how the president responded. In fact, they banned the Pope from coming to the White House. Says, no way, buddy, get out of here. Let's get to it.
Directing Democracy Together founding director Bill Kristol. Bill, what does this administration stand to gain from picking a fight with the very popular leader of 1.5 billion Catholics?
I mean, not much, I would say, but they pick a lot of fights and they don't like dissent. They don't like dissent from people here at home. They don't like dissent from European allies who have a different view of foreign policy and foreign policy issues. They seem not to like it when the Pope gives a speech. This the occasion for this, I think, was the speech he gave in his annual speech, State of the World speech, you could call it.
So you guys heard what the Pope had to say about the president. Well, the president says, hey, buddy, you're not coming to the White House, right? What do you guys think? You think that's fair based on both sides of the story?
In January, which had a different view of world affairs than President Trump's. Not a big surprise, but yet they thought it was an insult somehow. So that's really ridiculous, honestly, and not just foolish, but insulting, I think, to, like the Pope doesn't answer to the president. But secondly, what struck me is that he was summoned to the Pentagon. As you said, Chris, we have an ambassador to the Vatican. The Vatican has a representative here. They deal all the time on diplomatic issues, as the Vatican does with almost every other nation. They go to the...
What's happening, Mr. George? Nice to have you here. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
State Department, that's the main place that deals with foreign, obviously, ambassadors, representatives. He was summoned to the Pentagon. I think that's interesting. It says something about how this administration works. That the Pentagon, it really is, I guess, a center of power. If the White House was upset, they called over to the Pentagon and said, get that representative in there. Or maybe Hegseth told Rich Colby, one of his top deputies, to do this. But it's really, I mean, so it doesn't matter that much, I suppose, unless you're interested in the internal workings of the government. But I think if I were in any other administration, the Secretary of State would be having a fit that the Pentagon is independently, and I guess without consulting with the Secretary of State, calling in the Vatican representative, reading him the Riot Act, causing a rift unnecessary rift, you might say, between the U.S. and the Vatican, and now it's become public.
And Pope Leo, we've reported this before, was invited to attend America's 250th birthday, but the Free Press writes, quote, a mix of foreign policy disagreements, the increasingly vocal opposition of U.S. bishops to Trump's immigration policy, and the reluctance to become a political...
You know, what's interesting about this is on Palm Sunday, about 2 weeks ago, the cardinal was inhibited from going into the holy place by Israel. right? The police kept him from entering the holy ground. And now we're seeing such a big fight between the president of the United States and the Pope. You have to wonder, what's the big picture? What's the storyline that we don't get a chance to hear?
Bargaining chip in the 2026 midterms caused the Vatican to postpone the trip indefinitely. Now, a Vatican official said the Pope may well never visit the U.S. under this administration. Look, in the Pope's criticism of the war, he never mentioned President Trump by name. But if he doesn't come to the U.S. for several more years, the first American Pope in history, I don't know, do actions speak louder than words?
Yeah, I think they do in this case. I mean, I think.
Okay, Mr. George says the clergy should stick to religion and let Trump run America. Very good. Thank you very much. The Son of Truth says, I like to hear and see it. Okay, very good. Thank you guys for all the comments. Keep hitting the like button, share, subscribe, and also hit the hearts. Thank you.
I think they're well aware that Trump has shown a determination to make this 250th celebration of the 250th anniversary very much a celebration of his understanding of that anniversary and of himself. Honestly, you know, he's got this giant wrestling or whatever it is, martial arts thing going on at the White House and all this. So very Trumpy way of celebrating the 250th anniversary. The Pope probably didn't want to be associated with that. I can't blame him, honestly. He's going, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've announced on July 4th to Lampedusa, the, I guess, southernmost island of Sicily, which is where a lot of immigrants come across the ocean to try to get into.
Okay, guys, Mr. Drac says Catholicism is a cult. So we have some pushback in regards to religion today. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Europe. And so it was, I think, a gesture of sympathy and support for people fleeing persecution or poverty and trying to seek a better life in Europe. And I suppose it's consistent with the Catholic Church's position on immigration in general, and with American Catholics here, their criticism of the Trump administration's actions on mass deportation. So plenty of reasons. I do think it is, as you say, it's not just that he's not coming here, but also that he's going somewhere to make a kind of statement or gesture that's in accord with what prelates of the church.
All right. So the president of the United States is taking on heat from so many different people, but he's not backing down. In fact, over the last week, I've showed you several people, individuals. We've actually went through each of them. Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Letitia James, James Comey, right? So many individuals that have come out and talk expressly about the president of the United States. Some of them have also brought charges on him in federal court, right? State court. Well, the president is not having it. In fact, he's pushing back. And in fact, I told you guys 2 days ago, in fact, that we should hear from the president at a large scale pushing back on these individuals. Well, today we're going to take a look at it, as the president has come forward very strongly, very bigly to condemn these individuals.
2 hours after those comments, the president went on what Mediaite described as a Truth Social posting bender. Alex Corson, our EP, said it was like War and Peace without the peace. It was very long, which began with the president lashing out at right-wing podcasters who had criticized him this week over threats to wipe out the Iranian civilization. In a 485-word post, the president went after Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones. The president called them low IQ, nut jobs, and troublemakers. He also called them losers who were just trying to latch onto MAGA for publicity. And the social media rant comes after both Owens and Jones called for the 25th Amendment.
Now, I want you guys to keep in mind the reason why Pam Bondi was fired is because the president, one of the reasons he felt like she was not really combating or going after his enemies that well. So imagine what's going to happen to these individuals that he's mentioned, especially we have Todd Blanche temporarily, supposedly, right? Being in office, he's supposed to go after these individuals. But lo and behold, I would imagine you're going to see some strong activity coming in the direction of these individuals he named.
Amendment to be invoked. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who also called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, defended those podcasts.
I mean, who really supported the president more than Marjorie Taylor Greene? She was his number one, batting for him relentlessly. Or what about Alex Jones? He loved the president like nobody's business. And now you see these individuals, they're prime suspects, talking about the president every chance they get, and he's not liking it, folks.
Casters on social media writing that they all helped to get the president elected and adding that they didn't change. He did.
All right, so let's bring in senior writer at The Dispatch and a columnist at Bloomberg Opinion, David Drucker. David, we've heard, I think from the far right, there's a call for the 25th Amendment. Some Democrats as well have been messaging that. Also with us, we have Politics Bureau Chief, or maybe we don't because it just went away. It looks like Jay Mart might be. We have Jay Mart on the road.
Jay Mart is on the road. And you know, Drucker, when Jay Mart's on the road, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is there he is.
He's got fireworks going on there.
It is a fire alarm.
Are you okay there?
Well, I think he's actually it's a late night disco ball. He takes it around with him wherever he goes. So, Jay Mart, we'll go back to you in 1 second. He's got.
I want to take a moment. The profiler says the Pope supports the Iranian mullahs. Do you guys think just because the Pope is coming forward to condemn war, that means that he supports Iran? Is that what it means? Tell us what you think about this comment and your ideas in regards to this.
He's got Casey and the Sunshine Band going on behind him. We'll get back to him in 1 second. David Drucker, we do talk an awful lot about the fact that, you've got to look at the MAGA base and you got to look at these podcasters. I've got to say, though, with podcasters that have millions and millions of followers, and a lot of them, most of them voted for Donald Trump. I say, especially Megyn Kelly's continued
forceful and spot on,
compelling concerns about what the president has done regarding Iran.
Shout out to Uncommon Woman. I mean, when you guys see that Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, do you think it's something wrong with them, or do you think it's something wrong with the president? Tell us.
Especially the threats. I'm wondering if you're starting to hear any concern from Republicans, if we're still where we were a couple of weeks ago, where you have the right-wing podcasters and then you've got everybody else in MAGA world. Where are you right now, now that this seems to have a certain crescendo quality to it?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, Joe. And by the way, I thought the technical difficulties with Jay Mart was that he was at some breakfast joint. I really need to find out what he was eating. Look, yeah. I think I think that what's very interesting about the president's tirade, and of course, how many times has he gone on one of these benders, is that it's all personal, right? He didn't criticize Owens or Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly for stoking.
Okay, guys, Mr. Drac 10 says something wrong with them. It's not the president. Do you guys feel the same way? Tell us how you feel.
Anti-Semitism for being anti-Semitic in Owens' case, for sure. It's all because they're.
AZ says the president has lost his mind. Oh, my.
Angry at him. It's all because they're criticizing him. He's brought figures like this along with him, and he's accommodated their sometimes very outlandish, wacky views, and never said that it wasn't welcome within the party. But when they turn on him, now they're idiots who are not welcome in the party. And I think that's a real important distinction to make. And then you're dealing with the podcasters and their content, which in many cases has been anti-Semitic, has been conspiratorial. But
Anderson says, I support the president, not sure about the others. Thank you very much for your comment. Let's see what Tammy, welcome in, Tammy. Tammy says, people should have done their homework. All right. They have buyer's remorse when it comes to the president of the United States.
They clearly do speak for a subset of voters who supported the president because they didn't think that he would get the U.S. involved.
Guys, we have a proud Democrat in the building. Says, love seeing MAGA reaping their own karma. Ah, what a lovely sight. Okay, thank you. Guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Help us get to 70,000 subscribers. Thank you.
In a conflict like this in the Middle East. And so then we look at the politics of this and we wonder, after a month plus, right, we're just about.
John, welcome in. Nice to have you, John. Welcome back. John says, I voted for all of this. John is standing on business. I like your tenacity. BG says, Trump is the ultimate troll. Believe nothing that you hear and only half of what you see. My grandmother used to tell me that religiously. Lisa says, I allowed my own opinion just like you. Okay, we have a big debate in the audience.
To close out week 6, have things begun to change at all politically? And I don't think that things have really changed politically vis-a-vis support for the war among Republican voters, right? I still think the president has the broad support of Republican voters, and particularly, voters who self-identify as
Guys, my good team member here, J-Cat, says the remaining MAGA are people who can't admit that they are wrong. All right, thank you. And thank you, John, for subscribing to the channel. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Nice to have you around. Brenda Shaw. Brenda says, Donald Trump has saved the world. Okay, thank you, Brenda, and thank you for subscribing to the channel, too. Shout out to my cousin, New Jersey, and thank you.
MAGA. But I think one of the things we're learning is that voters that self-identify as MAGA aren't necessarily the podcast listener that were so crucial to the president's reelection in 2024. These are people that really sort of joined up with the right because they, took issue with the Biden administration. They took issue with how COVID was handled and all sorts of reasons. And these are the people that are a little bit that have, become skeptical of the president's leadership. Ultimately, Republicans are in trouble in 2026 because of underlying economic discontent, and the focus and the investment in the Iran war is just another big example that they're not getting what they want from the president on that front.
J-Mart, elections are one on the margins. We're in a 50-50 country usually. But, man, that margin's getting a lot bigger when you look at the numbers of people that listen to Joe Rogan, who's definitely been.
Okay, guys, there's another one. Joe Rogan has turned his position on the president of the United States. It seems that all of these individuals that are turning on the president, they have millions of subscribers and people that actually follow them. Do you think that this is going to cause a big concern when it comes to the midterm elections for Republicans and MAGA? What do you guys think?
Harshly critical.
I mean, the Democrats are already celebrating in the streets saying, listen, in November, we're going to take this over. We're going to impeach the president. We're going to have him and his wife deposed, just like the Clintons were deposed. All of this seems to be the fuel that's pushing a lot that we see in the media.
Of the president's immigration policies in Iran, Megyn Kelly, who day after day after day not only questions what Donald Trump is doing, but what Fox News is doing. You look at Tucker Carlson, obviously, they all have massive audiences. And again, it's not just when they go live. It's those YouTube views. You look at the numbers of YouTube views of Megyn Kelly or Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson. Those things are massive, and they live out there forever. Talk about the impact this is having.
Joe, the clips move on social media across platforms, and people who otherwise aren't listeners or viewers of those shows do catch 30-second snippets on social, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I know this for a fact from my own family. They're not listening to Rogan, Tucker, or Megyn, but they get fed some of those clips via the algorithm on social media. So their impact is even more outsized.
Okay, guys, Mr. Drac, let's check it out, says, if we can get the conservatives to show up for the midterms, we will win easily. The problem is getting people out to vote during the midterms. Thank you, Mr. Drac. Definitely nice to have you here. Gold Digger is in the building. Shout out to Gold Digger. She is so amazing. Grumpy. How are you, Grumpy? Grumpy says, you have your hardcore leftists and your hardcore MAGA midterms lay in the hands of independent Trumps. Has 6 months, and he has 3 massive boosts to the economy, and the midterms will be ours. When he says ours, he's talking about the Republican Party. Let's not get it twisted. Grumpy is definitely a Republican. John says we can all get along. All right, what a good message, John. Thank you. Tammy says, Lisa, I ask you nothing. Why would I ask you anything? Okay, we have Eric in the building. Shout out to you, Eric. Nice to see you. Okay, let's take one more from J-Cat. Says, see, no one can answer. Okay, not sure what the question is. I'll try to get back to it. Thank you.
Of the nature of today's information ecosystem, your point about the margins is critical. Both parties in this country, because we have a two-party system, so they got to fold everybody into below those two tents. And so both parties are coalition parties. Well, here's what's happening in the Republican Party. The sort of factions on the either extreme of the party. So the Alex Jones on one front, the real, a winger, as they would say, conspiratorial types, are dissatisfied with Trump because of the Iran.
So I just want to know from the Republicans, the MAGA, what are you guys going to do with Alex Jones? Because I thought he was a hardcore Republican. I thought he was the voice of the Republican Party earlier on. So what are you going to do with him now? You still follow him? Do you kick him to the curb? What's the strategy?
Decision. All right. Then you've got the other extreme of the party, which is the pre-Trump party. Never liked him in the first place. Kind of finds his conduct.
Guys, RD says, I voted for Trump, not the drifters. Okay, God bless America and Trump. Thank you, RD. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Johnny says, okay, he was never the voice. I've never listened to Alex Jones. Okay, all right. I thought a lot of people supported Alex Jones. Let's see what Tammy has to say. Tammy always knows. Tammy says, never did anything with Alex Jones. Okay, okay. Nuts D says, Alex Jones thinks for himself. Buddy, okay. Okay, Johnny says he's nuts. Okay, thank you.
Finds his conduct really embarrassing, but basically has sort of grinned and bear it because they couldn't vote for Democrats every 4 years in the general. I think he's at risk, Joe, of losing those two factions this fall, in part because they will stay home on one hand, and also some of them will just vote for a Democrat to send a message this fall. And that's a big challenge for the Republican Party. They always have a hard time admitting.
Okay, welcome in to St. Diego. Thanks for subscribing to the channel too. St. Diego says people treat politics like sports. Okay, Paranormal says hello. Shout out to you. Good to see you back. Nice to have you here. Okay, guys, so now we're going to look into a subject that I hear a lot about. Many Americans are concerned because they say Israel is really pushing this war, but they have to perhaps even see their children drafted. So the next segment we're going to look into is about drafting and how it may affect the common American. We know how it affected the president of the United States. Let's get to it.
Okay, just a couple minutes to the top of the hour here on your Friday morning. And let's look ahead now, because starting in December, every eligible male in the United States will be automatically registered for the military draft pool. Now, this doesn't mean the draft is coming back, though the White House does say all options are on the table during this Iran war. But Nick is following this one closely for us. And Nick, Republicans and Democrats say this is a good thing that will save money and really streamline the country's selective service system. So this has bipartisan support.
It has bipartisan.
Okay, so do you guys agree? Put a 1 in the chat if you think this drafting that she just mentioned is a good thing. Okay, starting in December, or put a 2 if you're against it. Let's see what you have to say.
Bipartisan support, Mark, and that's all because it would help to save money because all the process would work across the country. This is the deal. This is how it goes. This was already approved in the last defense bill. Right now, it's waiting to be finalized. But the key thing here is this. This is about registration, not an active draft. That would take an act of Congress. The draft is a database of men who could be called to serve if the armed forces has a national emergency. This country hasn't had one since the Vietnam War, but this rule would shift registration for that database from individuals to the government. So how does the government actually save money? Well, partially by not having...
Okay, guys, Grumpy says you're already required to go sign up for selective service, a.k.a. the draft at 18 as a man. Thank you very much. Grumpy is our historian on deck. RD says, if you want to vote, you need to sign up. All right.
To do outreach like the signs you see at the post office and federal buildings, reminding men of their obligation. A handful of states already have automatic registration, while all but 4 offer registration options on driver's license applications. Now, some states do require people to opt out if they do not want their information shared with the Selective Service.
Why do you guys think so many Americans are focused on Barron Trump going to register and also for him to go fight in the military? Why do you think that's such a big concern, especially on the left? People are saying you need to send your son first and you didn't go either. So that's a big argument. I see it every day in the comment section. But why? Tell us in the comment.
When they get their licenses. And some anti-war activists tell the New York Post they're worried that this is a data grab by the government and illegal immigrants and those with green cards would be targeted. It is important.
Ambassador says a military draft will throw this country into chaos. Thank you.
To mention, though, Markey, that women still would not be required to register, and those who are registered at the age of 18, it would become automatic.
Okay, good to know. But when you say draft, there is real fear there.
There is fear.
And I think for anybody with a son, wants to know what this is going to look like moving forward.
Okay, we have Derek. Derek, nice to have you here. Thanks for subscribing. Derek says you're required to sign up for Selective Service, but many people aren't, especially if they hadn't voted yet. Thank you, Derek. Nice to have you.
So thank you for those latest updates there. We'll stay on top of this story.
Thank you.
Okay, so we get an idea. This is a big subject that everybody's talking about when it comes to draft. But now we're going to look more about the President of the United States and his decision making when it comes to the war in Iran. Even though people are still not wanting to call it a war, we're going to go with that premise, though. Let's get to it.
I have already indications that many targets that were recommended by the Secretary of Defense were rejected by CENTCOM, that they were civilian targets. And I believe that people are already saying no to the hierarchy. The CENTCOM commander is walking a very thin line where he is trying to do the best he can to implement military objectives as he understands them without getting fired.
Retired Army Major General Randy Manner telling MS Now that military officials have said no to targets in Iran recommended by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Hold that thought, General Herdling. Anything you can add to this?
Yeah, Mika, this is not a surprise to me. Anybody that's been in a room where a kinetic strike package has been put together, a time-sensitive target or a strike package, understand.
Welcome back to Mud Butter. Good to see you. Mud Butter says, how does MAGA feel today, honestly? Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Let's see here. We have Nakama says, because people are only to serve in a war that the president believes is enough to send his son, if his songs live is not on the line, the president is more likely to send others to serve for a bullshit war. Okay, thank you.
Understands what goes into it. It isn't just issuing orders to hit something. You do an assessment of the target. You look at the dangers around that target. You look at the potential for collateral damage to civilians. You look at the effects on your operation and the military you're fighting against. It isn't just hit all these things and everything's going to be okay. There are commanders in the room, intelligence officers in the room, and legal advisors in the room when these strike packages are being put together. There's no doubt in my mind, Randy Manners is exactly right, that you're going to get pushback at the...
Okay, shout out to Vince Jackson. He says, no, the Dems won't win. Thank you, Vince.
Secretary of Defense level, if you tell someone to strike something that hasn't been assessed. And that's what the commander, the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Cooper's job is. His job...
Nakema, not worried about the typos. I understand it's all human nature. And also we have all the technology. I understand all of these whatever. So it's all good.
Job is to say we're having effects on things we're doing. It isn't just an overall genocidal push, which I believe was coming out of the mouth of the president when he said we were going to level Iran and destroy all the energy plants and the water plants and all those kind of things.
Now, let's just take a moment. We're going to pause here. Do you guys really think the president wanted to level and completely wipe out Iran the other day? Or do you think it was just wild talk? Tell us how you feel about it in the comment section. Do you think it's just a strategy for him to get the Iranian leaders to the table so that he can ultimately make a deal? Kind of like, I don't know if you had a chance to read his book, The Art of the Deal. Perhaps, do you think that he's performing the art of war? Tell us what you think in the comment section.
You just don't allow that to happen if you're a commander, because you know you could go to jail for it.
And I think, Rich.
Paranormal says, I think it was anger and frustration. Okay, thank you. Johnny says, I think it was a strategy. Okay, all right. Bobby Fisher, thanks for subscribing to the channel. Thanks for locking in. Says they could win new voters every day. Okay, all right. Lisa says, we never had the imminent threat to attack. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for all you do. Freedom says it was his signature art of war. Okay, good answer. Awesome. Sorry, guys. ADHD says the reason we are hitting Iran is to keep American money on top. They wanted to move all the oil sales to BRICS. Okay, so the president is performing at the highest level, trying to preserve America. Is that the idea? Let's keep moving.
I think it's good that we're at the point we're at today and not what was being threatened.
100%.
At the same time, that genocidal push that General Herdling just referred to,
Mr. Drax says, I think it was just strategy. I don't believe he wants to wipe out everything out. He cares about people. Thank you, Mr. Drac. Grumpy, let's see what Grumpy has to say. Grumpy says, we did it in Vietnam. Why not Iran? You'd be amazed what the U.S. president can do. All right, thank you.
these threatening posts do have damage, do have repercussions and consequences.
The good news is the pushback.
Okay, AZ says his threat was a war crime. And also, JCat says Trump needs to go. He got to go. All right. Thank you, guys.
You know, in a democracy, there's checks and balances. And this is actually a good example of checks and balances of people in government, that their loyalty is to the Constitution and to law and so forth and ethics, and that you push back against orders that they think are questionable. I actually find it really reassuring. We'd be thinking about the different conversation we would be having around this and other tables this morning if things had gone ahead. Can we return to the New York Times story just for a second?
Sure.
As someone who spent a lot of hours and days in Situation Room.
Okay, guys. George says MAGA are all deceitful rats. Okay. Mud Butter says, because we're never had anyone as terrible, broski. Okay, thanks for your comment. Georgia says, delete the MAGA mind virus. Okay, a lot of people are pushing back today. Tammy says Obama should be in prison for what he did to Libya. Thank you very much, Tammy.
So many things about that are stunning. One is how quick the president, we talked about, the president says, sounds good to me. Once presidents speak up in a meeting, the conversation's over.
Guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Also, continue to hit the hearts. It really helps the channel. Thank you very much.
Because then people are going to be, in most cases, particularly in this administration, reluctant to challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember George H.W. Bush, when we were having debates about how to react to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, specifically held back. He wouldn't say what he wanted. He wanted to hear what everybody.
Okay, so we get the idea. We're going to move on to Tucker Carlson. He's going to talk to us about Israel.
Kent said point blank when he resigned. And by the way, the day he resigned, he retained highest level security clearance. They tried to tell you, oh, he was a leaker. He was under investigation. It was a lie. They admitted it was a lie. He wasn't under investigation by the FBI. Untrue.
So just for those who may not know, Joe Kent was at the highest level pretty much when it came to counterterrorism. And he resigned maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. And he basically said that the United States was fighting a war for Israel that we really can't win. And he did not want to participate because it was, in so many words, an ungodly war. All right, so let's get to it.
And you know it's untrue because he held his security clearance till the day he left the building. So there's no intelligence in the U.S. government that Joe Kent couldn't see. None. He was one of the most informed people in the world. And his conclusion was, there's something weird going on here.
Georgia says we need to draft MAGA. Okay.
And one of the clues is the Butler shooting, the shooting in the summer of 2024 during the presidential election, where President Trump was shot in the ear by a gunman a little over 100 yards away on the roof of a building called Thomas Crookes. And according to Joe Kent, who would know, that investigation was closed before it pursued every possible lead. We can be fairly confident that Thomas Crookes pulled the trigger. We cannot be confident at all that he acted alone.
Guys, Johnny says Obama is an evil person and his library looks horrible. You know, the president of the United States said the same thing. In fact, he's going to put up a high-rise building down in, I believe it's Florida, Miami of some sort. And he says it's going to look way better than what Barack Obama put up in Chicago.
And of course, we can't know because that investigation was shut down. That's what he said. And Joe Kent, who you can dismiss as a wacko or a traitor, but you can't say he doesn't know what he's talking about. And you can't say the Trump administration didn't trust him with all available U.S. intelligence until the day he left. You can't say that because they did.
Guys, Joe Kent was not kicked out. He resigned. And as Tucker Carlson said, he had access to the highest level of intelligence, you know, within reason. So we have to wonder, like, what's going on when you have someone in the government actually come out as a whistleblower to talk against the president and talk against this administration?
Has said out loud he thinks the failure to investigate the Butler shooting, the shooting of our now president Donald Trump, and why wouldn't they investigate that, by the way? That alone is baffling. Why wouldn't they release all the information they have about Thomas Crookes? They haven't. Why? If it was a lone gunman, why didn't tell us all you know? But they haven't. Why? He believes that is connected to the control that Israel has over the United States government, the demonstrable control. He said that.
Now, guys, I want you guys, if you could, go back, but I actually did a live in regards to Joe Kent with Tucker Carlson, but he did insinuate that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death, and also that when the president of the United States was shot in his ear over in Pennsylvania, that Iran more than likely had something to do with that. So Joe Kent really came out with some information. In many regards, he substantiated a lot of the rumor mill that we had heard from people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, right? So we have to wonder what's really happening in regards to the government.
He also pointed to a couple of pretty shocking violations of the president's personal security by the Secret Service. They allowed things to happen that never happen around a president. Now, maybe they were mistakes.
Oh my, guys, Georgia is pushing back. Georgia says no new wars, said the deceitful MAGA rats. Okay, well, we do have a new war. It's happening right now in Iran.
You want to think they were, but who's...
I mean, let's be clear. We're under a ceasefire, but it's not so ceased if you really follow.
It's been fired at the Secret Service over those mistakes. No one that we're aware of. There's not been a wholesale reordering of the Secret Service. Their job is to protect the president, the elected president of the United States. And you do that not just because you love the president, but because our entire system hangs on the idea that the people get to choose their president and he can't be removed by force. That's democracy. If you could just take out the president by force, then how?
Okay, guys, Truth Only. Thank you so much, Truth. Thanks for subscribing. Truth says they were all getting info from the same person, Joe Kent. Thank you very much.
Was democracy real? People choose someone that larger forces don't like and they kill him, then you don't have a democracy. So protecting the life of the president.
Guys, I'm with Paranormal says, unfortunately, I think it's all about resources. Quite likely, when it comes to Venezuela, which I've been in court with Nicolas Maduro, I sat right behind him. It's very clear we went after the resources of oil in Venezuela. Also, Iran is boiling down to oil and also uranium, natural resources at the end of the day. And also when it came to Greenland, right, we want to go after the resources. Are you guys okay with that? Put a 1 in the chat if you think it's okay for our president, our administration to go after natural resources in other countries by choice or force, or put a 2 if you think we need to focus on America and not go after these other places. Let's see what you guys have to say.
Is essential to the functioning of our system. And yet, on at least 2 occasions, they've proven that they haven't been able to do that. And yet, has there been an investigation into that? Has anyone been fired over that? No. Now, those of us who don't work there have no real idea what that means. But someone who just worked there until the other day, Joe Kent, said, I think that may be related to our inability to say no to Israel. Now, maybe Joe Kent's a total wacko, in which case, why was he head of the counterterrorism center for the Trump administration? That's another question. But let's just say he's a total wacko. But what's the answer? I mean, the facts, the known facts have never.
Guys, AZ makes a point, says Charlie took millions from Israel to promote Israel and then turned on Israel. And we saw the consequences in live time, right?
Ever been explained. And at this point, watching Israel once again, not for the first time, hardly for the first time, short circuit American diplomacy, the expressed.
Now, I want to make it very clear. I'm not sure I buy into this whole Israel theory behind Charlie Kirk, even though I stay attentive. I just want to make that clear. I'm waiting. I'm actually going to be attending Tyler Robertson's trial, so I'll be able to tell you guys what I think after I attend the trial.
Will of the American president, elected by the rest of us, to have some foreign country of 9 million people to say no, exercise veto power over our president, short circuit our interests. This is bad for us. We're doing it anyway because Benjamin Netanyahu wants to. You see that enough times. This is, again, not the first time we've seen this. It's not the 10th time we've seen this. We've seen it generationally. You have to ask, what is this? And you have to find out. And you have to air it publicly because it has to end. We cannot be a free and prosperous country.
Okay, guys, James is saying something important here. James says it won't make sense to many until Iran becomes an issue that the world won't handle. They fund the elimination of God's children or any anti-Muslim. Joe Kent resigning means nothing. Thank you very much, James. Nice to have you here. Very good, guys. Let's see here. We have Randy. Randy says, U.S. never could keep their noses out of other countries' business. Thank you.
Until we are a sovereign country. What does that mean? Our leaders elected by us have to be able to make decisions in our interests. Not to the exclusion of everyone else. You don't have to end other people's civilizations in order for your own country to prosper. It doesn't work that way. But you have to put your people's best interests first, or it's not a legitimate system. And if there's another country and an arrangement with another country that's preventing you from doing that, you have to fix it. And then there are also moral questions. If that partner, you're close.
Okay, guys, JCat says when it comes to Tyler Robertson, there won't be a trial. Okay, quite possible. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Just ally, the only democracy in the Middle East, is killing kids in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Iran. And doing so without apology. If it's committing war crimes every single day for years with your money and your weapons, at some point you're implicated in those crimes. And you have to stop that too. It's all bad. There's no upside. Where's the upside?
So basically he's saying that Israel is committing war crimes with all of the tax-paying dollars from the American people.
And so the United States has to, and hopefully the first thing we do when and if this war is resolved, is detach from Israel, not declare war on Israel or treat Israel as an enemy. They may treat us as an enemy, as they have before. When they tried to sink the USS Liberty, an American naval vessel, a surveillance vessel, they treated us as an enemy. We don't have to treat them as an enemy, however, and we shouldn't. But we should treat them like we treat every other country, as an ally, but with restrictions and reservations and red lines. No, you can't act against our interest. And this distancing should begin with a total end of aid of any kind, military or economic, to Israel by the U.S. government. And people who love Israel, some of whom are pretty successful, can send all the money they want to Israel, and that's fine. But the U.S. government should send not one more.
Guys, Glenn, nice to have you here. Glenn Lauer says Trump hasn't done anything to little girls. You're a bunch of idiots. Okay.
dollar to Israel and not one more piece of military material to Israel, not one more fighter jet or bomb or missile defense system or small arm.
Okay, guys. Kimberly, welcome in. Nice to have you, Kimberly. Kimberly says, "Oh, shut up, Carson, you traitor to the USA." Thank you.
Or ammunition of any kind. Because Israel is aggressively acting against our interests. And so to continue to arm and finance them, their generous welfare state, for example, or their military, defend their nation, is not only contrary to core American interests, it's just masochism. Watch us hate ourselves as we fund a country that's killed more Americans than most other countries have. That's just a fact, and not just on the liberty. Every war that Israel has pushed us.
So he's saying that Israel has killed more Americans than any other country. Do you guys believe that?
To join has resulted in dead Americans. And the fault lies ultimately with our leaders who are going along with this. It's their fault first. It's not the Israelis' fault. It's our fault. But they're implicated in it. This relationship has resulted in a lot of dead Americans. A lot. And it's time not to end it, not to set up an adversarial relationship, but to set up a healthy conventional relationship where Israel can pay its own bills and fund its own military and act within the constraints imposed on it by its own economy and population. That's what normal countries do. Most countries live with neighbors that don't like them, with whom they have testy relationships, but they make accommodations because they have no choice. There's no country in the world that acts with total impunity because it knows.
Okay, guys. Nicole, welcome in to you. Nicole says Tucker is trying to cut ties with Trump, but keep pushing his bigoted agenda. Thank you very much for that. We also have Michael. Michael says, "I never known Charlie as a liar." Okay, thank you. Guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe to the channel. Help us reach 70,000 subscribers. We do this every day at noon. Thank you. Eastern Standard Time.
Much larger country will backstop it no matter what it does. That just doesn't exist in the natural world because it's not natural. It's grotesque. And it's terrible for the United States. And now it's obvious. And by the way, unless our lawmakers, unless the U.S. Congress restrains this relationship and changes its nature.
Okay, guys. Betty says, "Stop funding Israel. Give America health care." Okay. There's a big report. Donald Trump is coming out with a new health care plan. We'll check that out a little bit later tonight.
There's going to be political turmoil in this country. So, no mas. It is really clear.
Shout out to you, Freedom Eagle. Thanks for subscribing and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate you guys.
Israel's pursuing what it thinks its own interests are, but those are not the same as our interests. It's probably pretty obvious by now that.
Okay. Choke Chain says, "Take the strait." All right. I think that's what's going to come down to. You're going to have to take that straight. We're going to keep moving. We're going to learn more about Netanyahu and how he was the catalyst behind this war.
Also going to be potential talks that take place between Israel and Lebanon, specifically related there to Hezbollah as the strikes continue. Right now, what I want to do is bring in Shosh Bedrosian. She is the spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, joining us live to discuss all of this. And Shosh, thank you so much for being here with us.
Josh, thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I wanted to start by kind of asking you about where everything stands with those talks, the significance of it, and really what we can expect.
Sure. So the prime minister announced yesterday, on Thursday, that he actually instructed his team, his cabinet, the day before to begin these direct negotiations with Lebanon. This comes after several requests from the government there to create this dialogue, because what is happening with Hezbollah is a serious conflict. What we are working to do, Josh, and as you are showing the skyline of Beirut on your viewer screens right now, is to dismantle, to demilitarize, to disarm a terror organization, a genocidal terror organization that has built its mass against our northern border, not only threatening our civilians on our northern border, but also in central Israel in addition, plus the Lebanese people.
Okay, William makes a good point. William says, "Let's stay alive first, then worry about health care." Lebanon has zero, he said, zero to do with negotiations. Okay, thank you.
Who have been held hostage by another Iranian terror proxy that surrounds the state of Israel. You probably have reported, Josh, just over the last few days, these explosions that took place in Beirut just a few days ago. You've probably seen those images all over social media. But I'll tell you one thing. The headlines got the story wrong. The headlines by the press, somehow these journalists covering this conflict failed to mention Hezbollah in all of this. And you see that completely omitted, whether it's on purpose or whether they just simply don't know what they're reporting on, Josh. I want to tell you, Hezbollah is the problem here. This is not a conflict. This is not an operation against the Lebanese people. This is to free the Lebanese people of a terror regime that embeds themselves in the heart of civilian communities and in populations. There is no reason why weapons and infrastructure of a terror organization should be underneath homes and inside of apartment buildings and complexes in the heart of Beirut. But this is what Israel is working to do, to target these infrastructures of this terror proxy and regime of the Ayatollah regime in Iran, and to make sure it no longer exists and poses a threat to us.
And you kind of touched on this there, but I wanted to ask you specifically, because we know over the past several days, one thing we've heard about this peace plan between the U.S., Israel, and Iran is that it does not include Beirut, which of course is why the talks are necessary there. I wanted to ask you specifically why that is maybe a red line for Netanyahu, saying that it can't include Beirut right now. We need to continue those operations against the Hezbollah terror group.
Guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. We have two streams going simultaneously. One is for cell phones, the vertical, but there's also a stream going for those who are at home and want to watch on their TV, on the laptop or computer. So make sure you like both of the streams to help promote the news here, independent news at Watching the World.
Well, look, the prime minister made it clear yesterday that there is no ceasefire in Lebanon right now because it is so critical to dismantle this terror.
Yes, guys, we look at all sorts of news here, and we have people from the left, the right. Doesn't matter how you identify. We just ask that you show respect for others. That's all.
Organization. You know, we've learned the very difficult way on October 7th what happens when a terror organization says what they mean. When they want to destroy us, when they say they want to murder us, we need to believe them. When it comes to Hamas,
thank you, Growski. Thank you very much for your support.
it's the same mentality with Hezbollah. We have to believe this genocidal terror organization.
I hear you, Cameron. Thanks for supporting the channel.
That's up on our northern border. Josh, actually, last night, because we're in a ceasefire right now, of course, we didn't expect any sirens to sound here in central Israel, coming from Iran. I want your viewers to know that we actually had sirens go off around 1:30 a.m. here in Tel Aviv. And it was actually from a long-range Hezbollah rocket that targeted this area. They pose a direct threat to the Israeli people and the Lebanese people as well. You're looking at a statement the prime minister put out yesterday specifically on these talks. And there's two objectives when it comes to these negotiations that should take place within the next coming days or so. Is the first one, we want to see Hezbollah disarmed. Remember, there was
Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with the war in Iran and you feel like we need to take care of these people, get them out the way because they're a threat to the United States and the world. Or put a 2 if you are against the war and you feel like man needs to live in peace. Let's see what you guys think.
Was a ceasefire in place between Israel and Hezbollah back in 2024 that was established. They were not disarmed by the Lebanese government, which was a commitment that was made. We are expecting these negotiations to get us to a place where there no longer is a terror organization. And 2, we want long-term peace with Lebanon. We want to be able to have a relationship with this country. You know, we used to have a relationship with Lebanon back in the day, and our people used to be able to move freely within this area we are in the Middle East. In addition to trade, we want to have a peace treaty with Lebanon and the Lebanese people as well.
One thing that's interesting is you hear a lot of folks that talk about the situation there in Lebanon, Beirut specifically, and they refer to it almost as if it's one operation there, both Lebanon together with Hezbollah, but they are very different. Can you explain for folks out there maybe how the Lebanese people in general feel about the Hezbollah terror group?
Sure. This is certainly
So this gives us an idea what's happening, boots on the ground there. Now we're going to take a look at the Supreme Leader and his thoughts on milking the Strait of Hormuz.
Our Vice President, J.D. Vance, and other top U.S. negotiators are heading to Pakistan today ahead of those high-stakes peace talks with Iran.
Meanwhile, President Trump says he is optimistic about working out a deal. Trey Yanks is live in Tel Aviv with the details. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, Lawrence, good morning. High-stakes talks are scheduled this weekend in Islamabad, Pakistan, aimed at
Dr. C says man does need to live in peace. That's why they're trying to eliminate the terror countries. All right.
creating an agreement to end the war. With the temporary ceasefire in place, international focus remains on the Strait of Hormuz.
Shout out to you, Paul. Thank you.
Overnight, President Trump took to Truth Social to say, quote, Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonorable, some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have. With just 8 vessels reportedly passing through the strait in the first 48 hours of the ceasefire, a statement was released via state media from Iran's new supreme leader saying, quote, and certainly
MTK says, thought he had a deal again and again. All right. That's why they are calling the president Taco. It says Trump always chickens out. This is what people are actually saying, folks.
we are entering a new era with management of the Strait of Hormuz. We did not and do not seek war, but we will not give up our rightful rights in any way. And for this, we consider all the fronts of resistance as one. The region is waiting to see the outcome of the talks in Pakistan as Iranian officials and U.S. officials appear to be discussing a different set of terms. Iraq's foreign minister spoke this week about the talks.
We discussed the upcoming negotiation process in Pakistan, and we support and encourage this process. And we hope that the negotiation process will achieve its goals, which are peace and security in the region.
One issue that appears to be a sticking point is whether or not Israel will be able to strike Hezbollah, Iran's largest proxy based in Lebanon. Overnight, Israel struck launching positions in southern Lebanon, and shortly after, Hezbollah launched a rocket that triggered sirens in Tel Aviv.
I want to tell you, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We continue to strike Hezbollah with force.
So the other night when we had this whole deal materializing, I told you guys it would be very hard to get Israel on the table because they're going to do what they want to do. And lo and behold, these words have come true. And check this out. This is Israel's stance, and they will not stop dropping the explosives in Lebanon.
And we will not stop until we restore your security. Our great achievements, both in Iran and against the axis of evil, have brought about a historic change in Israel's status in the region.
You heard the Israeli prime minister there. There is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We do know talks are scheduled directly between Israel and Lebanon next week, aimed at creating peaceful relations between the two countries and disarming Hezbollah. Guys?
So, Trey, right now...
Okay, guys. AST says such lies are being spun by Israel and the USA. Okay. Grumpy says, I so believe we should sue Democrats for ruining Taco Tuesday for us. So rude. Thank you for the humor there. Thank you very much. Gold Digger, thanks for all you're doing. Shout out to you. Farmer John says Trump is the greatest president. All right. Do you guys agree with him?
Were there any rockets, drones, attacks into the Gulf states yesterday?
Yes, Kuwait says they came under an Iranian attack yesterday. Other countries said it was quiet compared to the days.
Sunshine says Israel runs Trump. They're running the show. Do you guys feel like our country is being led by Israel? Sunshine says Israel is the worst. And Tazier says absolutely not, greatest liar in history. So we have people here with different thought processes when it comes to the president.
Before, but it's an indication that this war is not over. We're in a...
Guys, we have 800 people. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. And shout out to all the people that are on X as well.
Temporary ceasefire, and this question of Lebanon is quite critical because the Iranians say they're not even willing to sit at the negotiating table unless the ceasefire includes Lebanon. But as we saw last night, Israeli strikes against launching positions in southern Lebanon after...
Thank you, Groundsky, for the membership and also gifting a membership as well. Thank you very much. You're far too kind. Thank you to everybody that's supporting the channel. We really do appreciate it. We do this every day at noon Eastern Standard Time when I'm not in court covering cases such as President Trump, Sean Combs, Nicolas Maduro, and so many more.
The IDF picked up intelligence that there was going to be a large-scale rocket attack, and then later in the night, sirens were sounding here in Tel Aviv amid incoming rocket fire.
All right, Trey, thank you so much.
Guys, we have a general consensus here. I just want to go through it real quickly. Talibu says, most definitely Israel controlling American policy. We also have Nicole. Nicole says, yes, Israel is controlling Trump like a puppet. Oh, my. Michael says, Israel and Iran are wings on the same bird. Okay. Captain says, Israel is the provocateur. Everything we send troops to the Middle East, stop supporting Israel. A lot of people are really pushing back on Israel today. Billy says, hello, Mel. Is that the true about the Cardinal being threatened in the Pentagon? This sounds very, absolutely. It's true. It's happening right now. We're going to cover that a little bit later. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
Senator Ted Cruz, he detailed why he thinks this has been so successful. He goes through, destroying the ballistic missiles, destroying the Navy, all the ships under the water. Listen to this.
In terms of this military operation, virtually all of the military objectives have been achieved with incredible success. We've seen the air defenses of Iran almost totally obliterated. We have seen the ballistic missiles destroyed. We've seen the ballistic missile manufacturing destroyed. The same with drones, both drones and manufacturing destroyed. We've seen the Air Force almost entirely taken out. We've seen the Navy, more than 140 ships.
Hello, Murray. How are you?
Sunk, the biggest naval defeat since World War II. We have also seen the Ayatollah and virtually all of the senior military leadership taken out. So in terms of a concentrated military operation, it's been incredibly successful.
So what is the senator talking about? 80% of Iran's air defense have been taken out.
Paul says, we got your back, Israel.
450 ballistic missile storage facilities have been taken out. 90% of the Navy, that's 150 ships, been taken out. 95% of the naval mines have been taken out. 80% of the missile production facilities have been taken out. So if you would look at any other conflict, you would consider it a win. The problem is the political system has not collapsed. The population has not mobilized against the regime, and the Strait of Hormuz is now in their control. And so that's when you look at it from a military perspective, you would think that is a win.
So what do you guys think? When this war started, Iran did not control the Strait of Hormuz, but now they do. And as a part of this whole deal, we're trying to get them out of the way, get control of the Strait of Hormuz. What do you think? Are we winning or are we losing? Put a 1 in the chat if you think we're winning. Put a 2 if you think we're losing. Put a 3 if you just don't care.
We are literally on the 5-yard line.
It's definitely a fragile peace deal. Iran is testing their limits. There are reports that Iran's going to start charging these tankers a toll to gain access of the strait. And Donald Trump said they better not be, and if they are, they better stop now. And the supreme leader is saying he plans to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that can't happen. That was the whole reason for the peace deal, to open up the strait.
So right now, they say most 15 ships are going to get through. You need 100 for business as usual. So think about the precedent. If you could just say international waters, that's near me, I'm going to take a toll. Take a toll. So the Taiwan Strait will take a toll. You'll see the North Korea deciding anyone passing in the vicinity, there'll be a toll. This will change the way we do international trade. This can't stand for multiple reasons. Now, we know there's a plan in place since the 80s, been sophisticated, been put up to date, how to take the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah. We know that some of the challenges are there's some tunnels underneath with these boats will come out. All you need is one fast boat that it's going to be maybe operated without any pilot to go in and just take out one tanker, and that could bring things to a halt. But I think militarily, this is going to be solved when we go in there with our Navy, with our military assets, and just take total control of the Strait of Hormuz and hold on to it, much like we've held on to Venezuela's oil production. It's for the people of Venezuela to benefit, but we're in control over it because the regime was not capable of doing it until they transition. That's pretty much where we're going to be heading, I think, within 2 weeks. They're using this as an excuse saying, oh, Israel and Lebanon.
All right, guys. Grumpy says America doesn't lose. We are born winners. Okay. Thank you guys very much. Let's see here. We have Mike. Mike says losing is not being as good a shape as when we started. Clearly, we are not. So, yes, we are losing. Okay. Thank you.
They're going to have less and less control over that region. Hamas has been taken down to size. Hezbollah has been taken down to size. Israel's about to finish the job. That would diminish the influence of Iran even further after they lost influence when Syria flipped.
Spartacus says, thank you, Spartacus, for subscribing to the channel. Spartacus says, crazy. These guys on Fox are so happy to send Americans to die for Israel. Wow.
Went out. So I just think it's understand within 2 weeks, I think President Trump is going to be implementing a take back Hormuz deal.
And I also think that we also have to consider the Gulf states. We finally got the Muslim Arab world on our side. They're fighting radical Islam with us. To just disappear and allow them.
Jenny says, please, you are not born into anything. This country has lost its way. All right. Mike says 2 weeks. Okay. Also, Crispy Bacon says, we lost Vietnam. My father actually fought in Vietnam.
To deal with the consequences, because they're going to be the first one. Israel and the Gulf states are going to be the first ones to deal with the consequences when Iran restock their stockpiles. I just think that's a bad precedent, and they'll never fight with us ever again.
Well, yeah, I think so too. And I think it's so important for the Gulf states to use their leverage over China to say, hey, look, if you're going to go rearm, if you're going to support what Iran has been doing when you know they're a terroristic nation, don't expect to do deals with our economies. I'm talking about Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. They have to send that message, and the president's going to knock it home in May when they meet face to face. This is all related.
Philip says, we aren't winning the war. The straits are still closed. All right.
You can't have both. You can't have relations with Iran and with the Gulf states along with us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Okay, so we're getting an idea here of what's happening when it comes to the war. Now we're going to take a look even further when it comes to the Iranians and the White House.
Senior political correspondent with the Daily Mail, Alina Shirazi, into the show here. Alina, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to start off real quick. You were at the White House press briefing on Wednesday, and you had a question for Caroline Leavitt that I just want to play out here as we kick this off.
And I've been talking to them through the blackout. One of my family members yesterday said goodbye to me. So what message should we be sending Iranians when they message me saying, what should they be doing right now? How should they stay safe? Because they really don't know what to do.
I think the president's main priority, and my main priority as his spokeswoman, is to make sure that clear messages are sent to the American people, of course, which is my job today. With respect to the Iranian people, the president, has taken out the imminent threat that was posed by their military to the United States, to our allies in the region, to our forces in the region. And of course, as the president has long said, he hopes that Iran will be a country of peace, of prosperity, and we're moving into this next round of negotiations to hopefully.
Guys, Sunshine says, I'm so sick of this. I want those Epstein files, and people should be arrested by now. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comment.
Come to an agreement with this new regime that will create long-term stability in the Middle East.
Alina, and just listening to that exchange and what you said where you had to call a family member and say goodbye, just kind of walk me through your thoughts of that exchange there.
Yeah, this was actually my first White House briefing. I used to cover the White House under Biden, but I was the early morning reporter, so it was really just a backdrop at that point, right at 7, 8, 9 a.m. But getting added to the White House team here at Daily Mail, I knew I had the weight of not only the countless questions that are facing Americans right now, but the hundreds of Iranians who are counting on me. And it's a matter of survival for them. So to your point, I think Caroline almost knew how badly I needed to get that question answered. I was making a lot of eye contact, shooting my hand up, being really aggressive, trying to get her attention. She made eye contact with me a couple times. Thankfully, I got her attention. So you heard there, I asked what I should go back and tell Iranians when they asked me what they should be doing right now and how they should stay safe after President Trump said that he would wipe out their civilization if their leaders didn't come to the table. I think I saw it get through to her a little bit, especially given how I humanized the issue in the briefing room. Honestly, I don't think she expected that question at all, to be honest. She said she thinks the president's main priority and her main priority that day, kind of how she phrased it, she was kind of slow rolling into it to figure out what she was going to say, I think, is to make sure that clear messages are sent to the American people. And ended saying with this next round of negotiations this weekend that they will hopefully come to an agreement, but that really didn't answer the question.
Okay, guys, Curtis says Israel blackmailed Trump. They have all the Epstein files and videos. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer to go back to for the people of Iran and for the many Iranian Americans who are worried about their loved ones, Bowen.
And I just wanted to play the follow-up you had real quick as well, if we can dip back into that press briefing from Wednesday.
Said that they should stay inside of their homes and also take back their country. So there's a contradiction there. So how do you address that?
Again, we're moving into this next round of negotiations with the remnants of the regime and those that we are speaking with now to hopefully reach a place of peace long term for the region. And that includes the Iranian people as well.
And then hearing that, and I want you to talk about also your background with Iran and your family there, just so our viewers get a sense of that and your response or what you took away from this exchange on Wednesday.
I mean, I followed up there pointing out a contradiction. Trump has asked the people of Iran to rise up, and he has also asked them to stay inside of their homes. And there has been really no clear communications or follow-up or messaging for Iranians on what to do next. I mean, Iranians are asking what to do to survive. They're not asking, questions that might not impact them immediately. And the answer that they're getting, and what I took from all of that, is we're doing our best on the American side. They're talking about the latest on negotiations. Caroline talked about messaging. She's definitely good at her job. She definitely skirted around it. And I think.
Okay, Lisa says 50,000 more troops just left. Oh, my.
I think a lot of people, when I was looking at the comments as well, they weren't satisfied with what she had said there. You mentioned the family connection. I brought that up to her, hoping to get through to her so she could answer that question a bit better. I am worried about family and friends, as are a lot of us right now. It's even higher stakes for me to get this story right. It hasn't been the easiest assignment right now, but I'm committed to it and committing to getting answers.
Has there been any reaction from the Iranian people with the announcement of these peace talks scheduled for tomorrow?
Okay, guys. Sunshine says exercise the 25th Amendment and get Trump out of and detain him for questioning and record it just like they did with the Clintons. Sorry, the chat is moving so fast I can't even keep up with the comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Iranians really are conflicted about this, right? They're hoping for the best for themselves and their families, and they want to stay safe. Meanwhile, that's all wrapped up with the hope that this regime will be eliminated. I did another interview a little while ago where I talked about how it's difficult to sort of separate the two because they're getting hit with missiles and bombs, and they don't know what's going to happen if they step outside of their homes. But they're also worried about what their own government will do to them. And I know we saw a lot of that when the president had said that he would wipe out the end of civilization, a little bit about what the government said that they would do. I mean, they made them be human shields around a lot.
Well, the president definitely got everybody's attention when he said he would wipe them out because people are talking about it throughout the entire world.
A lot of these key infrastructure points that Trump said that he would hit. It's a really, really difficult time. And, the saying is stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think that's how most Iranians feel at this time.
And then one of your recent reports says the Iranian government is ordering people.
Guys, Uncle Mike says Dems don't care about the safety of real working Americans. Thank you.
To go onto the streets as human shields. However, with the ceasefire deal has been made, how does this work now with these human shields? Is this something that the Iranian government forces people out in the streets to do?
Yes. I mean, the government was literally telling people to form human shields, asking them to form chains around power plants and bridges and places that the president said that he would hit. They asked them to bring their children. They said that essentially it was a moral order, that if they died, that they would be dying for their country. That's the way that they had phrased it. We had seen that on the news, and I'd spoken to people in Iran, and they were telling me the same thing. They were confirming that these are the messages that they were getting. And some of the pro-regime supporters actually did go out and do that. I did that report, as you mentioned, where I spoke to Iranian.
Okay, guys, Curtis says the clown needs to be removed from office before he pushes the button of no return. JCat says he needs to be locked up. Okay, Sunshine says Dems and reps are literally two wings on the same bird. Okay, Growski says, where is the humanity? Thank you.
That same day, some of them told me that they were frantically evacuating major cities. Some of them were going to the countryside. They were sending goodbye messages to their families, to their loved ones. They had to delete all of their messages.
So these people are actually preparing to lose their lives for the sake of the country. As we know, when the president made his big threat, many of them were locked arm in arm around these power plants and so forth. It's amazing to actually hear from someone close to the story.
Messages is another thing that they told me. They were fearing that the government leaders would just check their phones. It all just felt so apocalyptic. It was really just crazy.
And you're covering this really extensively with this conflict, with those peace talks scheduled for tomorrow. What do you think we can expect?
Yeah, so, well, if history is any indicator, possibly not much. But Trump, he is sending his closers. He's sending the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who has historically been anti-war. So this will be very interesting to see how he handles this direct conflict face-to-face with these leaders. They're sending the rest of the American delegation, Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, to Islamabad this weekend for talks. These are the highest level direct negotiations that we have seen with Iran since 1979. They're facing Mohammed.
Shout out to Simon. Thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Simon says brainwashing works. Okay. Joseph says peace, anyone? Thank you for subscribing, Joseph. Thank you guys for all you do.
Ghalibaf, he is the Speaker of Iran's parliament. He is a hardliner with a brutal reputation. I did another report where I spoke to Iranians who told me that his nickname inside of Iran is actually the rooftop killer for his role in crushing student protests and physically throwing students off of roofs. Bottom line, the United States will push for Iran to hand over their enriched uranium. I know that there's been a lot of talks, the 10-point plan, the 15-point plan. There's been a lot of confusion on what the plan really is. Is Pakistan giving them two different plans? It's all very confusing. But in this latest White House briefing, Caroline Leavitt did say that there is that 15-point.
Okay, thank you, Pete Taylor, for subscribing and supporting the channel. Pete Taylor says, if talking about unilateral wars of the U.S., we are 5 wins and 3 losses and 2 stalemates. This reflects wars where the U.S. did most of the fighting. Thank you very much for your comment. Thanks for your super chat. Amazing. But more importantly, thanks for subscribing, guys. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Plan that President Trump went back to them on. Enriched uranium is a key point here. In exchange, Tehran is, as of late, demanding a full withdrawal of U.S. troops from the Middle East, control over the Strait of Hormuz. And if talks fail by the Saturday morning deadline, that 2-week truce will expire. And ultimately, this is going to be the real test of Trump's transactional diplomacy.
Alina Shirazi, thank you so much for coming on today, helping us get a perspective. It's very difficult to find what people are actually.
Okay, we're going to look even more into the actions of Iran as we continue with our show. We have still so much to cover.
Secretary of Defense and Secretary of Veterans Affairs Robert Wilkie, and Newsmax foreign policy analyst and former Trump foreign policy advisor Waleed Faris. Good morning to you both, Mr. Secretary. I want to go back to Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the president accuses Iran of violating the ceasefire by, quote, doing a very poor job of opening up the key Strait of Hormuz as a trade route. Now, we mentioned only a handful of ships have made it through since the agreement. The ceasefire.
Okay, so the president is holding it against Iran for not keeping the strait open. Do you guys know what made them close it down again? Because they had opened it up, but for some reason, they closed it down. Tell us in the chat why it is closed, okay? Tell us why.
Seems to be hanging on by a thread. Do you think that this has any chance of success?
I don't think so. With the dead enders in Iran, look, what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz threatens the foundational.
Look at all the ships that are backed up, backlogged because of all of this is happening.
Principle of American foreign policy that goes all the way back to time.
That's right, Michael. Mike says Israel violated the ceasefire. Okay, thank you. Ceasefire.
Thomas Jefferson. I mean, we emerged on the global stage when Jefferson said he would not tolerate.
That's right, Curtis. Curtis says Israel keeps bombing Lebanon, so that has a lot to do with it. Okay, Simon says close it since Israel kept bombing Lebanon. All right, everybody is up to par on what's happening around the world. Thank you.
At that time, the Islamic factions in Algiers from blocking the free passage of American
Mr. George says liberals are ruining America. All right, thank you.
Ships into the Mediterranean. This is intolerable, not only for the region, but for the world, because what it does, if the Iranians continue this and they're not stopped, this gives the green light to China in the South China Sea to do what they want when it comes to interfering with global commerce. I don't expect much to come out of these negotiations, and it will be a failure if the straits are under the control of the Iranians.
Waleed, another thing that the president is warning Iran to stop doing is charging.
Okay, guys, Sleek Black Roadster says Trump agreed to the plan that says that Iran controls the strait. Now, and then he tried to pretend like he didn't agree with the plan or reason he had to agree to it is because he had war crimes on deck. All right, thank you.
Tolls on ships that are moving through the strait. He says they better stop now. What do you make of this? And talk about how
Snicky says it's because of the Epstein files.
Detrimental it is for Iran to be charging ships like that.
Well, the secretary is right. What the Islamic regime in Iran is doing is just breaching international law openly. He mentioned incidents from last century or the century before, when the United States actually had to send the Navy and Marines to North Africa to deal with these jihadi activities at the time. I have not seen till now any.
Ken says, did Trump really say we can't release the Epstein files because a lot of his friends would be in big trouble?
Indication from the narrative of that regime. Usually, first thing to change, like in the case of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev, things start to change. Nothing. I looked at social media of the Islamic Republic and their supporters.
Lisa, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I have no clue what's going on, but there's nothing wrong from my reference point. I'm not sure what's happening.
They are mobilizing. So what we get from them in terms of negotiations is one thing. What we see in reality, charging. I mean, this is international water. They cannot be charging, and he's right as well. We're going to see this in many other places in Latin America and mostly in South Asia. And
Curtis says he's manipulating the stock market. Talk about insider trading. We talked about that 2 days ago. Thank you.
The China Sea.
So, Mr. Secretary, so as we all know, the discussions aimed at reaching a long-term agreement to resolve the war start this weekend in Islamabad. The U.S. negotiating team includes the Vice President, J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, the President's son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner. And look, you said already there's not a lot of hope for this, but I think from the regime's standpoint, why are we negotiating? You get a choice. You can try to cling on to power or you can die. Which one do you want?
Well, that's right. And look, what the Iranian practices, and Waleed is the great expert on this. The Iranian practice is to drag things out as long as it can be dragged out. They're going to try to buy time to reconstitute their forces in their own streets. Remember, these folks killed more of their own citizens in January than we lost in the entire Korean War. So that's what is going on. And as long as the regime can rebuild its instruments of terror, then I don't think that this has any prospect of coming to an acceptable end. I think the only acceptable end is to take control of those straits and do as much damage as we can to the regime's ability to terrorize its citizens and its neighbors.
Okay, very good. So we have one more way of looking at this in regards to the Iranian war.
But Congress and President Trump and his administration say they're optimistic about negotiations with Iran and Pakistan this weekend. But this, of course, is the Iranian terror regime that we're supposed to be making some kind of deal with. They've been lying for 47 years. They've been lying about just the terms of the ceasefire over the course of the last 48 hours. So do you think that a ceasefire can last, or that a deal can be reached with the remaining Iran leaders in charge?
I think if they want to remain alive, that they should probably start negotiating. You know, Hezbollah has been their muscle around the globe for terrorist activity. You know, there's a lot of international players involved in this. People buying their oil, of course, are funding this terrorism. That apparatus, Trump can knock it out pretty quick, and they know it. And he's not fooling around. I don't think I would jerk this president around too much. He's not like other leaders we've had who put a mark in the sand and people just run over the top of it. He's not going to play that game, and frankly, America isn't either.
Well, speaking of America, let's talk about the domestic impact of the fight to remove the Iranian threat. I want to play a clip from you, a video you posted while pumping your gas yesterday about rising fuel costs and get.
Okay, guys, Mr. George says, like Trump or not, he's doing what every other president has done. Stop crying about it. It's done. Okay, thank you.
Your reaction on the other side.
We buy 0% of our oil from Iran. Also, that little quart of oil that they sell in here, guess what? It doesn't go up like gasoline does at the pump. It's a complete and total ripoff, and they know it. And Washington allows it because they're bought and paid for by big.
Guys, we have over 1,000 people. Could we please hit the like button, share, subscribe? Please hit the hearts in the comment section and help us really boost the channel. Thank you. Make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications. We do this every day at noon. Thank you.
So what do you mean by bought and paid for by big oil? And what's the solution to that problem that you called out?
Well, it's not a free market, and thank you for letting me talk about that. They are bought and paid for by political contributions on both sides of the aisle. You know, we brought in the leaders of these oil companies in the past, and they schmooze us, and you know, they shake the money tree, and then they leave town, and they get their subsidies, and they get their everything that they need. And, you know, and I know people are going to say, Bert, you just don't understand commodities. Well, I understand a commodity, but I also understand something that subsidizes, which we do with the American oil industry. They're given incredible tax credits and things like that. And I realize they're a corporation, and a corporation is made up of shareholders just like you and me. But when you have these fat cat CEOs come in and they do that, and they do that to the politicians, and they make generous contributions to them, and it's all legal, it's all out there for the public viewing. But don't tell me this is a pure commodity, and don't tell me this is pure capitalism, because pure capitalism, you go out there and you sell your product, and if it doesn't work, you go out of business, but not at all.
Are you accusing them of price gouging?
100%. 100%, ma'am. That oil in the ground, it's been in those pumps or in the processing months before any battle was going on. That oil that you buy, and they say, oh, it's about the price of oil. You don't understand the price of oil. Then why doesn't that quart of oil go up at the, you know, that you, and down here at the at the hardware store that you buy for your automobile, your lawnmower. It doesn't go up, or it goes up, but not like gasoline does at the pump. And also, diesel fuel, ma'am, is the first cut. Well, the first cut's probably kerosene they take off, and then diesel, and then they refine it further for gasoline. But yet, diesel's the most expensive. I've got a Dodge Dually pickup truck where I guess it's my 18-year-old daughter's. But when I filled that thing up, I told somebody, I said I was either going to send her to school for a year, buy a cup of coffee, or fill up my dadgum tank, because they all cost a heck of too much more than they should. And they're ripping us off because they've literally got us over a barrel, ma'am. Every time any new innovation comes along, that costs a little bit more than what it costs at the pumps. Miraculously, gas drops down below it, and that is not profitable anymore.
Well, when you got a dually as well, we know that you have to spend twice as much with tires. So you got a lot of costs when it comes to that vehicle, but it's a very helpful one in certain circumstances. I want to go to another topic that you're passionate about, UFOs. Last week, we covered an alarming number of high-level U.S. scientists with connections to NASA who disappeared or turned up dead with no explanation. You said this week that you've learned in briefings on the topic, what you've learned about the topic would keep Americans up at night. Is Congress considering an investigation?
All right, to keep Americans up at night. Okay, Doc says, I love my country, but we do foul things and expect things to work our way. God bless the world. Thank you very much. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, guys. Thank you.
Open hearings into the disappearance and death of these individuals?
Probably not. That thing that just ran by you was a glacier. I always tell that about Congress, because Congress.
Okay, Grumpy says impeaching the president is not going to fix the problem when you have an incompetent Congress and Senate on both sides that have caused your problems. Okay, we also have Scott. Scott says maybe they're going to the moon. Okay, thank you.
Move slower than a glacier. By the time we do that, they'll be moved on to some other bright, shiny object. But we do need to discuss this. There's credible proof that there's something else is going on, and the military and all these alphabet agencies, they'll publicly say one day they don't exist. This is all baloney. But then they're spending tens of millions, maybe billions of your dollars researching this. It's not about little green men or flying saucers, ma'am. And you, as a member of the media, it shouldn't be.
Put a 1 in the chat if you guys believe that aliens, as we know, exist, or put a 2 if you think it's just all malarkey. So 1 if you believe they exist, 2 if you don't. Thank you.
It should be about, what are we spending this money on? Why is there not transparency? Where is this money going? And that should be the discussion. And I've talked to the president. He's going to have to ask some tough questions of these agencies. And why am I in a meeting with somebody who tells me the president is on a need-to-know basis? That's a very chilling statement to make, that someone has that much power, an unelected bureaucrat. Sometimes it's some little punk with a man bun who's got a smart aleck attitude, and you're sitting there with military professionals, and you can just read.
Okay, so most people feel like the aliens do exist. Oh my. Some are saying it's spiritual. It would be interesting to see how that would fit in line with the Bible, because I don't believe the Bible speaks about that, and a lot of people are deeply rooted in the Bible, so that could be quite a contradiction, I guess. Let's see.
Them that they are disgusted with this little punk that has authority over them, and that should be something you should be discussing. But the money is going into something. Quit telling me they don't exist. If they don't exist, then dadgummit, quit looking for them.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and down.
Okay, very good. So we have 2 more topics we're going to cover, and we're going to call it a day, but let's get back to it. Let's look into what's happening when it comes to Cuba. Let's check it out, guys.
Would you be willing to step down if it meant saving Cuba? ¿Está dispuesto a dimitir con tal de salvar a Cuba, para la gente de Cuba, al pueblo de Cuba?
Tú que eres una periodista
You are
importante,
a very
reconocida.
important
If the United
recognized
States
journalist.
If the
Have you
United
ever
States
asked that
asks-
question to any other president in the world?
because it's one of the conditions the United States is asking for. Would you ever consider that?
Let me explain. Have you asked that question to any other president
I
in the
asked
world?
very
Have you
tough
asked that question
questions
to
to
any
our
other
own
president in the
president,
world?
yes.
Se la podría preguntar a Trump.
Could you ask
I
that
asked
question to
very
Trump?
hard questions of President Trump.
Eso muestra
Is that a question from you, or is that coming from the
So basically, the United States will be adding Cuba to the list. It's just a matter of time, but we get a chance to hear from the president.
Department of the U.S.
My
government?
question is, because it's one of the things that we've heard the U.S. government talk about, that they want political change here in Cuba. So my question for you, if they asked you, if they said, this is one condition, would you step down?
Because of your honesty, I'm going to assume that you're asking that question because of those reasons. In Cuba, the people who are in leadership position is not elected by the U.S. government, and they don't have a mandate from the U.S. government. We have a free sovereign state.
We have quite the debate going on about aliens in the chat, so let me take a moment to address this. Rap Harm, put in the Bible scriptures that talk about aliens. Put it in the chat. There's so many people talking about this. I guess it's a big subject. We're going to have to do a deep dive on aliens because it seems that the chat is going insane talking about this subject matter. All right, so let's see. Lou says there are no aliens. There are spiritual beings that became demons after Lucifer's revolt against Jehovah's authority. Okay, all right. Let's see. We have so many people talking about this. Mr. George says, that's funny. No one is focusing on fraud. Liberals just keep saying war. Okay, that's not about the aliens. Okay, John says Epstein Files is just another leftist media distraction. Okay, here we go. Rap Harm says the president added Cuba like a week or so ago. He's literal. Okay, all right, that's not about the Bible. Okay, Amina says it's in the Bible. If you have man-made Bibles, you won't see it. They're called clouds. Okay, scrolls and a few other names, and the government knows it. I have information as well, but they took it down. First time I've heard that one. Anton says, Lisa, then why do you trash Trump supporters? Okay, all right, let's see. This might be about it too. Elizabeth says, if you believe in the Bible, you believe in more than just humans. Okay. All right, quite the discussion going. Let's get back to it.
A free state. We have self-determination and independence, and we are not subjected to the designs of the United States. On the other hand, Cuban leaders are not here representing an elite of power. You can see my background, where I was born, my family, what I've done throughout my life. We are elected by the people, although there's a narrative trying to disregard that. Any one of us, before we become part of a leadership role, we need to be elected at the grassroots level in an electoral district by thousands of Cubans. And then those who represent the Cubans at the National Assembly of the People's Power elect those leadership positions and those offices like it happens in many other countries around the world. So we have an election system on the basis of people's participation. So whenever we take this responsibility position, and this leadership position is not out of our personal ambition or a corporate ambition or even a party ambition. We do that as a mandate by the people. And the concept of revolutionaries giving up and stepping down is not part of our vocabulary. If the Cuban people understand that I'm not fit for office, that I am not I've not risen to the occasion, then and I should not be holding this position of president, I will respond to them. But you need to realize that you should not focus only on the president of the country, because we have a collegiate leadership which is very closely linked to the people. But it's not the United States that can impose anything on us. The U.S. government that has implemented that hostile policy against Cuba has no moral to demand anything from Cuba. They have no moral, not even to say that they are concerned about the situation of the Cuban people, and that the Cuban government has taken Cuba to this situation when they have all this responsibility on their shoulders. I think the most important thing would be for them to understand and take this critical position, a sincere position, and that they recognize how much it has cost the Cuban people, what the policy that they have implemented in terms of what they've done, and how much they have deprived the American people from a normal relationship with the Cuban people, and that they set out as we have requested and as we have asked. And
So we have a lot going on in the foreign policy department. It will be quite interesting to see how the president of the United States prevail, if he can, when it comes to so many fires. We have a lot of fires at the same time. So we're going to take a look now at something quite different. I want to show you guys what's happening in regards to the war. Let's pay attention to this individual here. Let's see here. Thank you, guys.
President Trump into starting this war. I could tell from the beginning that the deep state was not in favor of this war. I know one or two people on the inside, and you could tell from what people were saying about General Kane's views in the mainstream media that the deep state was not enthusiastic about this war. And of course, we all knew, just having watched Prime Minister Netanyahu over the past 40 years, that he is deeply committed to attacking Iran with the United States and either creating regime change and producing a regime that dances to our tune or wrecking the country. So we knew for sure that Netanyahu was pushing very hard. And the New York Times has now written two big pieces on how the decision was made. And in my opinion, it's unequivocally clear from those two articles that the deep state was not in favor of this war. There were all sorts of individuals who were telling President Trump, these are government officials at the highest level, who were telling President Trump, this is not a good idea, it's probably not going to work. Kane basically said, we don't have a viable military strategy, and the National Intelligence Council produced a report that said it wasn't going to work, and so forth and so on. But what happened is that Mossad convinced both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump that we could win a quick and decisive victory. You all know the story. What we do is we go in, we launch a shock and awe campaign, and we especially pay attention to decapitating the regime. And once we do that, the whole house of cards will tumble. And the reason the whole house of cards will tumble is that the regime is built on sand. The foundation is very weak, and all you have to do is topple the leaders, and people will be able to rise up, overthrow the government, and we will get in place a new government that will basically surrender to us. It's quite clear that Netanyahu himself and the head of Mossad, David Barnea, played a key role, the central role, in convincing President Trump that this would work, that this strategy, this shock and awe strategy built around decapitation, would produce a quick and decisive victory. And we all know from the international relations literature, when you don't produce a quick and decisive victory, that what happens is the war morphs into a war of attrition. This, of course, is exactly what has happened in the case of Iran. We're now in a war of attrition. And the fact is, we can't win a war of attrition. It's just not possible. Let me just give you 6 points that illustrate that. Think about this very powerful Navy that we have, that President Trump talks about using to open the Straits of Hormuz. We can't put that Navy anywhere near Iran, certainly anywhere near the Strait of Hormuz, for fear that it'll get sunk to the bottom of the Jolly Roger by either Iranian cruise missiles or Iranian drones. You understand that the Navy is parked far away from Iran and not, therefore, very useful. Bases. We had 13 bases in the region, 13 major bases in the region. The New York Times has reported that of those 13 bases, all of them are either badly damaged or destroyed. In terms of ground forces, a ground invasion, people in the media talk about 40 or 50,000 troops being located in the Middle East, and this implies that these are 40 or 50,000 combat troops. That's simply not true. You need you need infantry divisions or Marine brigades or whatever to wage combat, ground combat against Iran. And President Trump has only recently moved 7,000 combat troops into the region. 7,000 combat troops. You could do hardly anything with 7,000 combat troops. And if I walked you through all the scenarios where you might think about using those 7,000 combat troops, you would see that this is, not possible to win it's not possible to win any kind of military victory with those small ground forces. In terms of aircraft, do you know that in this rescue operation, we lost more planes in one day than we've lost at any time since the Vietnam War? Just think about that. We lost more planes in a rescue operation that's supposed to be a great victory than we lost on any single day since the Vietnam War. And that was a long time ago. And we fought a long list of wars since then. Then missiles and high-end munitions. You understand we're running out of missiles and high-end munitions. This is catastrophic for trying to contain China. We were supposed to pivot to Asia. We're pivoting away from Asia. We're bringing THAAD missiles. We're bringing Patriot missiles. We're bringing this Marine Expeditionary Unit out of East Asia to deal with the problems we face in the Middle East. This is not the way you want to contain China. This is pivoting away from East Asia, as I said. And then finally, we have no ability to defend our allies in the GCC, right? They're being pounded by the Iranians. That's just the American side. The more interesting side is the Iranian side. They hold almost all the cards. They are in a really powerful position. By cutting off traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, they're in a position to tank the global economy. Just think about that. The leverage that they have is enormous. The consequences of what's happened so far for the international economy are going to be devastating. The fertilizers. People don't talk much about the fertilizers. They talk about the oil and gas. 1/3 of the world's fertilizers come through the Strait of Hormuz. This is planting season in lots of countries. The consequences of all this down the road, many, many people are going to starve to death as a result of this crazy war. But the Iranians, right, they have huge leverage over the world economy. And we, of course, understand that. Furthermore, they have huge leverage over the GCC states, those 6 countries. Why? Because they can destroy them as functioning societies. They could destroy their energy infrastructure, but more importantly, they can destroy their desalination plants. These are big, fat targets, few in number. The Iranians have lots of very accurate missiles and God knows how many drones. They can wreck those countries. This is a serious threat. That gives them huge leverage. So the basic problem that President Trump faces, this is the basic problem he faces, is he can't go up the escalation ladder because the Iranians can beat him on every rung because they have control of the Strait of Hormuz and they have the ability to wreck the GCC countries. And by the way, do enormous damage to Israel as well. There's a good reason that the Israelis are going to enormous lengths not to let us know what's happening inside their society in terms of hits from missiles, both ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, right? So you just want to understand that. So we can't go up the escalation ladder. And moreover, there's no exit option here except admitting defeat. That's the only way Trump can get out of this, is to basically admit defeat. You see what I'm saying here? You can't go up the escalation ladder, and there's no attractive exit option. And the Iranians are certainly not going to give him an attractive exit option. If you're playing their hand, you want to be incredibly hard-nosed and ruthless with the United States and the Israelis. They are mortal enemies. You understand that from the Iranian point of view, we are an existential threat to them. So they have a deep-seated interest in driving a hard bargain, to put it mildly, and they have a lot of leverage. This is the predicament that Trump is in. So this brings us to Monday. Monday morning, he issues this remarkable Truth Social post, where he says that if the Iranians don't cave, in other words, if the Iranians don't throw up their hands and surrender by nighttime, he's going to destroy Iran as a civilization. He's going to destroy it and make it impossible for Iran to come back from the dead. This is a truly stunning statement. This is another example of genocidal language. Did anybody ever think that an American president would say something like that? I certainly didn't. This is the kind of language that you would expect from someone like Adolf Hitler, right? That you're going to exterminate this country called Iran, erase it from the planet, and make it so it can never come back? Sounds like a Carthaginian solution, doesn't it? What's going on here? You want to ask yourself. What's going on here is Trump is desperate. He's desperate because he understands the basic logic that I just laid out to you. We are playing a losing hand, and the consequences of continuing to play that hand are that the global economy will go off a cliff. It will do much more than destroy his presidency. The consequences would be enormous. He knows this. I'm sure he has people who are telling him that. He's desperate. So what does he say Monday morning? I'm going to turn to extermination. I'm going to turn to genocide. But then you want to think about what happens later that day, Monday evening. He backs off. And what does he do? He basically says, I concede defeat. It's very important to understand that. He basically says, I concede defeat. Now, why am I saying this? First of all, there are two plans on the table. One is the 15-point plan. Those are our demands. That's plan number one, the 15-point plan. And then there's the Iranian plan. That's the 10-point plan. And if you read them, it's like the difference between night and day. If you read the 15-point plan, it has all this, the typical U.S. and Israeli demands of Iran. And if you read the 10-point plan, the Iranian plan, it has all of their maximalist demands in it. What President Trump says in his Truth Social post, where he basically says, I surrender, is he says that I accept the 10-point plan. He says that. He says it's a solid basis or a sound basis or a good basis for moving forward. Wow, that's really shocking, right? So let's just look a little more carefully at what's going on here. We went into the war, we meaning the United States and the Israelis, I like to call them the tag team. The tag team went into the war with four main goals. Number one was no more nuclear enrichment for Iran. Number two, they have to get rid of all their missiles, their long-range missiles for sure, anything that threatens Israel. Number three, they have to stop supporting the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. And number four, regime change. It's very clear that regime change is the goal. Trump denies that. Others deny it from time to time, others in the administration. But all you have to do is look at the New York Times piece, and it's manifestly clear that we were bent on regime change. That's what David Barnea and Benjamin Netanyahu were talking about, and President Trump. There's no question about that. And you want to remember, President Trump talked about unconditional surrender. This is regime change. So regime change was one of the four principal goals. We have failed at every one of those goals. We're not getting rid of Iranian missiles. We're not getting rid of their nuclear enrichment capability. In fact, their great fear is that they're going to get nuclear weapons, right? And in terms of supporting Hezbollah, the Houthis and Hamas, there's been no change on that dimension. The Iranians and Hezbollah are actually working together, dealing with the situation in southern Lebanon and northern Israel. And with regard to the Houthis, one of our great fears is that the Houthis, in cahoots with the Iranians, will shut down the strait at the end of the Red Sea. And then there'll be no traffic out of the Red Sea as well as out of the Persian Gulf. This would be really disastrous, right? And we haven't gotten regime change. None of the four goals have been achieved. And furthermore, the Houthis are now in charge of the Strait of Hormuz. On February 27th, they were not in charge of the Strait of Hormuz. They were not threatening to throttle the world economy. They now control the Strait of Hormuz. And they would be out of their minds to give up that control. So I think for as far as the eye can see, Iran is going to be in control of the strait. This is disastrous for the United States. It's just disastrous.
Okay, thank you guys for tuning in today. We had so many people come through. We'll be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. with criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. I want to thank you for all the participation. We were over 2 hours today. Yesterday, I was in court with Sean Diddy Combs in regards to his case. So I will be on Tasha K tonight at 8 p.m. discussing that court case as well. I will have a intense breakdown of Nancy Guthrie over the weekend. I'll announce what time. But we will have some more reports on Iran over the weekend, especially as new information come out. Thank you guys for supporting the channel tremendously. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Take a moment to hit the subscribe button, help us reach 70,000. Hit the like button, share, and keep coming back. We continue to have these discussions, even though most people are not of the same party. We have some that are Republican, some that are Democrats, some people identify as mushrooms, some people like mushrooms. Whichever category you fall in, we'd like to ask that you keep trying to be respectful to one another. As each day go by, we become friends, and it's a tremendous thing. I see all the thank you in the chat, and I want to say you're welcome to each and every one of you. A lot of new names today, so I look forward to getting to know you guys. And until we meet again tonight, I want to say you guys be well. And I'm battling with bronchitis, but I still wanted to come on and do the show so that everybody could get in and have discussion. So I have to take a little time out now to try to feel better so I could get back on the microphone and sound pretty decent while feeling much better. So thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon. I really do appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand.